guys, VG Time back again with another deck profile. This time we are back courtesy of my friend Jason and the Great Priest deck. Now Jason, because he's working hard and he's playing other card games right now, asked me to tune his Great Priest deck for him. We provided all the cards, and after a couple of weeks of playing it on stream, this is a list that I came up with. I believe this leader has a lot of potential. There's so many ways to build it that it's kind of daunting, but I believe I came up with something that works pretty well, and we'll just get into the deck profile. So we have the leader, the Great Priest. The leader has what is called a deck building limitation, which is that you cannot include non-god battle cards in the deck. Now that might seem like a huge deal, but honestly, since we are 16 sets in, there's so many gods that it doesn't really limit what you could do. Has one of my favorite abilities, which is it allows you to switch from the rest mode to draw a card. That means you get cards without having to give your opponent any cards. Then his awakening condition is that if you have 4 more colors in your energy, you're allowed to untap 2 energy and untap him. On the backside, he has an activate battle that allows him to switch to rest mode to draw a card and then combo with a god from your hand. It has to be multicolored though. And that effect is usable on your turn as well as your opponent's turn. Starting with the Unison, this is arguably the worst card in the deck, but we have to run it. So this is Great Priest Invitation to Battle. So a lot of people might be like, hey, I've seen this in Soul Striker. This guy is awesome in Soul Striker. In this deck, it's kind of mid. So you could play him for 3 for his activate main, because your leader is a Great Priest. And then he has an activate battle where you get to switch him to rest mode and plus him up to untap one of your blue gods in your energy, and then combo with a god with a combo cost of 1. So a couple of things about that ability. 1, it requires you to be in combat. A lot of what this deck does not put it into combat. Granted, I made it more aggressive than it used to be, but it still is kind of difficult to pull that effect off. And when it's your opponent's turn and you try to do this, if your opponent is just smart and attack him to draw their card or to get rid of him, his effect never happens. The -3 says that you get to return a battle card that is played by your opponent back to their hand. Again, that's pretty stains because you're not really seeing battle cards being tapped out for or being tapped heavy for. Most battle cards being played cost 2 or less energy, and just doing that means they could just replay it again or just go past and have energy up. The premise of the deck is to basically try to play these guys out early. These are Conics. They have offering. You can play them on your opponent's turn by paying red. Or you can play them in general at the end of combo by paying red. Comes into play, and usually you're doing it on your opponent's turn using your leader's ability. At which place your opponent is going to probably crit the life because they're not going to want you to just draw 2 cards. And then they have to deal with, or at least in their mind, deal with a 16k beater. We also play 4 copies of Cocktail. Cocktail is similar to Conic, except for he doesn't have the keyword offering. Instead, he is your opponent crits a life or you draw a card and your opponent discards a card. Again, early in the game, they're going to probably decide to crit the life because they're trying to awaken and they're not really thinking about it too much. But all that is free damage and cards that they're not getting to their hand. 2 copies of Corn. Corn is really here to be charged. I do have a couple more on the side for the slow matchups where you want to just be sitting there tapping and tapping and tapping. For instance, like a Hatchiyak or something like that. We play 4 Whis, 2 Vados. Whis is basically a token negate in the body. He also has an auto that when he's comboed, he gets to untap an energy. So that is also really good. Vados, you have to pay for. She basically stops 15Ks or less from coming into play and puts them at the bottom of your opponent's deck. when she comes into play or when she is comboed, you are allowed to untap an energy. But this right here is an example of why this guy is not really that great. So you would think, oh, well, you could tap him, untap an energy combo. No, this has a combo cost of 2. This has a combo cost of 2. This has a combo cost of 2. So he doesn't really interact well with this particular deck. Next up, we have 3 copies of Owamo. Owamo is basically here for color, but also you could play him for 1 yellow energy on your opponent's turn or on your turn. It's a similar thing as Conic. And then you can switch on the rest mode to draw a card. Now, next up is the Beerus engine. We play 2 copies of Beerus Combative Impulse. So this guy right here, you play him, you switch one of your opponent's battle cards to rest mode, and then he has an auto that if he KOs a battle card in battle, you get to draw a card and put one of your opponent's life on the bottom of the deck, and you get to sand this card. So it protects him by putting him back in active mode, and yeah, it's burn and draw. 4 copies of Beerus Unceasing Rage. This is an arrival. It allows you to -2 battle cards by 10 when he comes into play and draw a card. He also has an activate main that allows you to KO opponent's battle cards in rest mode that are 20k or less, and it gives him plus 5k and triple strike. So both of those abilities are cool. We mainly use the arrival part of it. The second ability hasn't come up yet, but it's still good. 2 copies of Beerus No Holds Barred, the OG arrival Beerus. Comes into play for yellow and red, so it's 2 energy. A little expensive at times, but still great. It could either keep an opponent's leader from switching to active mode until your next main phase, or you could KO a battle card with 30k power or less. There's a way to cheat with that, but it's very, very strong. But 2 copies Champa Beers, and he allows you to KO a battle card with 20k power or less, or give a 6 cost or less battle card, which is every battle card in his deck except for 1, double strike. And then we have Lakir. So Lakir was the first card I even thought about for this deck outside of the Conics and Cocktails. So basically you get to switch any of your red battle cards, which are like the Conics, Cocktails, Beeruses, whatever, for his alliance, to -2 of your opponent's battle cards by 20k and draw 2 cards. If he's allowed to sit out there for at least 2 turns, you're already so far ahead. Also, he only costs 3 if you already have a red or a green battle card on the table, which you will, because again, we're trying to stuff this guy on the table as quickly as possible. He is my preferred turn 3 play over the Unison, unless I'm playing, particular matchups or whatever. 3 copies of Wee's Super Combo. So this helps us with our arrival. We already had the ability to tap, draw, combo this for free, arrival, and all that stuff. But you also want to have another more reliable way. Whis is our super combo of choice for the most part. Also, Whis plus No Holds Barred outs every battle card except for the 2 Victory Strikes and SS4 Black Ultimate, as long as it doesn't have barrier. 1 copy of Beerus Super Combo that allows you to switch to active mode of red-blue energy. We usually charge at least 1 throughout the course of the game. Either most likely a Vados, not necessarily a Whis, just so that we have the ability to have that freedom of untapping the energy with either the Unison or the Beerus. Our ultimate, Majin Buu Kibito Kai Absorbed. So that's why we have to run the Unison more so than anything. This card right here is just amazing overall. If you have the whole setup, it's basically Baby Hatch for 2 green. If you don't have the whole setup, it at least says your opponent's battle cards can attack. And if you're trying to be aggressive on a final turn, this comes down as a 40k double striker for 2. And with the leader effect, it usually is a 50k double striker. As I mentioned, you could use your leader skill on your turn or your opponent's turn. The thing that gives you freedom to use it on your turn is this card, Spectate. We only play 3 of it because it gets kind of cloggy. But basically, you're able to untap your leader card on your opponent's turn as a counter attack. So in lieu of an actual counter attack, you would use that ability. Violent Rays. One of the things that the deck has a little issue with is decks that go kind of tall and wide. So Violent Rays helps to deal with that. Decks that go low and wide, we run 4 copies of Bean because, you know, Bean is generic. And that's the other reason why we charge a blue energy at some point, whether it be Owamo or Vados, is so that we have access to Bean to make our leader just a little harder to hit. But the main purpose of all this burning and critting and all that stuff is just to get your opponent to 2 and play Race to Universe to win the game. Usually you could do that by turn 5. A lot of decks hurt themselves, and like I said, if you're cooking, your opponent is critting themselves for no reason. And so usually on turn 4 or 5, cheese them with Erase the Universes and you win. So VG, what happens if your opponent knows what's going on? Well, good question. You still are making really cheap, efficient bodies. You could force them to that too. So hopefully you enjoyed the deck profile. I'll catch you again next time. And this is VG Time, signing out.